Hey, this is Layers of Fear 2. Hi. I am
Oh,
your...
we started?
Hi, I'm eating a sandwich because it's more interesting than this game.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm busy playing Smash Brothers.
Oh my
Because it's
Because
fuck.
it's
more
more
interesting than this.
interesting than this game.
Yeah,
Whoa, what,
we get it, boys. Nobody wants to
oh,
give
what the
them...
fuck?
Nobody
Is that,
wants to keep playing
is,
this game, but... Hey, we're doing it out of fucking obligation.
There's a fifth chapter that shouldn't be there.
I
yeah, didn't
know.
they promise 4? Like, this seems a little, wrong.
This place feels so familiar, like I've been here before. And I can't find
Why
my
is the
way.
quality-
I swear I left some breadcrumbs here.
Well... This door is locked, and so is... literally everything else. Nothing zero here.
Hmm.
So I wanted to bring something. I wanted to bring about something that's happening with.
Do you see now? You tried to fix me. Instead,
With the game?
broke
Or
yourself.
the story?
Huh? What a perfect analogy for this game. Whatever.
What do you want to bring up?
In case people forgot for some reason, I want to bring attention to the Blair Witch game, which has recently gotten some new trailer and details.
After its announcement at E3.
Yeah. So I want to know, what do you guys think about it?
I haven't seen the new trailer, but I do have thoughts on the Blair Witch game that it's kind of capitalizing on a trend that's kind of old now, but it still looks interesting enough to be something to look out for and be checking in on. I'm sure I'll have a more concrete answer after I see the trailer, though.
Yeah.
My opinion is just, eh.
I actually honestly thought it was what's that other game? Is it Outlast? I thought it was like Outlast 3 or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. The thing with Blair Witch is that it's going to have combat.
That's weird considering
the
the entire movie is not based on that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's going to have combat, and you're going to use a dog as a gameplay mechanic. As in, you'll basically have to use your dog to solve puzzles to help you solve puzzles and stuff. And again, this is why I'm asking, like, do you guys think that now that the developers of this game, because this is done by because Blair Witch is going to be done by Bloober Team, do you think
Right.
that this is going to it's going to succeed?
I'm not sure. I feel like Blair Witch was a pretty mediocre movie, so it's like using that as a catch-all, like, ooh, we're gonna get this license for this horror game. Like, but the movie was just okay. It wasn't like great at all. It was just a spectacle idea, but it still was done pretty mediocre. So the idea that they're also changing the idea of it to be more like they have the combat with the dog and solve your puzzles with the dog, it's like you could have just made it an original game and it would have probably still been.
It would have
probably would've been a
sold
little
about
more
as
interesting to
well.
me. Probably, and it would have been a little more interesting to me as well, because it's like I don't have that expectation of mediocre property.
I am willing to.
Yeah,
give-
because I don't care about the Blair Witch series at all. It's just meh horror flick capitalizing on found footage genre and whatever.
Yeah,
I don't
because of
care
all the
about
old
that.
conspiracy theories around that kind of subject.
I'm willing to give them a chance because, you know, even
Fair.
nowadays, like, the found footage genre is not exactly like one of the what the fuck is
Flooded.
yeah, the found footage
It's not
genre.
bad.
That vase
genre.
keeps falling.
I know,
You
right?
tried so hard to bring me back. You called out to me from the void. But something else answered.
How was Exdeath there, by the way? In the void.
You talking about the void?
The boy.
Ripping off jokes is my good forte.
Okay, so yeah, back to the point is that I think that I'm willing to give the developers a chance because these guys have been wanting to make a fucking Outlast clone for a fucking century now. And now that they have more...
You know what's kind of ironic about that is like the idea of Outlast is a little bit of a Blair Witch clone. but done better. So it's kind of funny that they get to make the original property that it's kind of ripping off.
Yeah.
But again, now that they have the chance to use a licensed property to make us something good, well,
I could be interested in that, but my opinion also stands that it's like, well, you made a point that it's like the found footage or genre or that kind of genre of horror is not really a flooded market. Like you got like the first person horror, you got like Layers of Fear, you got Outlast, you got Resident Evil 7, and PT was supposed to be something, but it died. So
in terms of in terms of film, it also
in film it's also pretty low.
Yeah,
so.
but it was also a pretty interesting concept, especially because of movies like Paranormal Activity or Grave Encounters. Yeah, those movies were really good on their own regard. Yeah, sure, the genre was exploited to death, because Paranormal Activity had to make like 6 different movies or whatever. But
true, but here's my stance on it: in that, like, I could see Blair Witch turning out like this, where it's like the movie. Okay, it's gonna be a reversal here, but bear with me. Like Blair Witch came out and it's a pretty crappy movie. Like at the end of the day, it's not great. And Paranormal Activity did that kind of idea a little better, where it's like, look at this found footage, and they kind of sold it to you a little better. Where it's like, I think the Blair Witch game could suffer the reverse of that, where Outlast did that kind of game better, and Blair Witch might not really wow people because of that.
Well, the premise on the Blair Witch movie is interesting in and of itself, because, for example,
premise being interesting doesn't mean it's a good movie.
Yeah, you play as a detective trying to find missing people, so you'll basically have to. So you basically have to
in the
stumble.
game, yeah.
So you'll basically have to
but the
stumble
movie was just
across.
Teenagers.
So you basically have to stumble across the recordings of the teenagers, from what I'm gathering, and figure out what the hell is happening, despite the fact that we already know it's basically it's basically.
But then what's really the point of that when the whole thing ends up being, oh, they just found a generic monster. That's all it was. The end.
Yeah. It could have something going for it in that it could have better production values than something like Outlast, because Outlast was kind of a under-budgeted gem.
Outlast is a glorified indie.
Yeah, it's a double A at the end of like how indie would be considered single A. Outlast is in that No More Heroes type middle ground where it's like it's got some budget behind it, but it's not really liked by the publishers a lot.
Yeah.
So
I think that we like, if we are open to the idea of a horror game not needing to be fully psychological and being its own kind of brand of horror, because for fuck's sakes we can't have psychological horror anymore. If we're open to that idea, at the very least I think that it would work.
It could, and there's a void there because like we brought up PT, but like Resident Evil 7 doesn't do that kind of thing, even if it is a similar styled game. It doesn't do a psychological horror thing. It never has, really, to be fair. But
Resident Evil was just scary thing. Figure out what's behind it. Oh no, umbrella.
Well, I mean, Resident Evil in that regard, it's like it's not scary, but like, it's that concept of dread. Like, that's what it really is. So, but something like Blair Witch could succeed in psychological horror if they wanted, because Silent Hill was the only big name that was really keeping that alive in some regard, and that kind of went down the drain after Konami started becoming fuckheads.
So much deeper.
So yeah, again, I think that if we're open to that idea, we can get something great out of it. But at the same time, I'm just sad because the psychological horror genre is very underappreciated, and that sucks.
Right.
Like,
and the sad thing is this game could have its, like you said it, this game has its potential moments, but it's also like such a drag,
Yeah. And again,
which is unfortunate.
And again, the first Layers of Fear just caught that psychological tone really well, really well. In fact, I think it's one of the best examples of how you can use psychological horror to toy with the player as much as as much as they keep playing the game. But the problem with
Mhm.
Layers of Fear 2 is that this is the result of pandering towards a fandom that never really appreciated psychological horror games to begin with. They just wanted their stupid scary game like Outlast because, Outlast was the popular one.
Right.
And by the way, this is not me saying that Outlast is a bad game. Far from it.
It's not.
It's a really good game.
In fact, I'm going to be playing it for October,
Yeah.
assuming this has gone up before then.
Yeah. But the
Way
problem
to date our fucking LP, Legon. God damn it.
but the problem with Outlast is the fact that this is not an in-your-face horror game. This is a psychological horror game, and if you don't like that, then good for you. But leave the psychological horror for the people who appreciate psychological horror.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying that about Resident Evil 7 or Blair Witch or Outlast?
Again,
I'm a little confused on your point here.
okay, if I'm not clear, well, like I said, Layers of Fear is supposed to be psychological. That's my point.
Mhm.
That's where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. You meant you meant like this game should be leaving it to the games that are trying to be that psychological
Exactly.
instead of trying to just take it
yeah,
and run with other ideas.
yeah. So Layers of Fear should be a psychological experience, aka it doesn't need to rely on jump scares to be good, or dragging the plot out. No, it just needs to show the player good visuals and make sure that they're scared because the game is toying with them and their perception of reality. I see what they do. I see what they're trying to do in this game, but he gets held back by the fact that there's a fucking monster chasing us, which doesn't allow us to fucking take into the scenery. In fact, it only breaks the immersion because we already know that if we die to it, it's going to be game over and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it kind of ruins the immersion because it's like, oh, this is being a video game instead of being an immersive experience.
Yeah. Layers of Fear has enemies. It does have enemies. But those enemies contribute to the ending. And believe it or not, like, as soon as you get caught by them, you don't get a game over. Most of the time, the story just continues.
Mm-hmm.
So, this thing can be done right. And you know what? It needs to be done right. And that's the problem. Like, if you want to be an in-your-face horror game, do it with a game like Blair Witch, not with Layers of Fear. Leave Layers of Fear alone.
Like you said though, the first Layers, I think you kind of have a misguided point in that. Like Layers of Fear isn't trying. Like you said, the first game figured that out, did it? It's like the problem with Layers of Fear is more that they lost their way in that regard.
Yeah. And again, it was done because people criticized it for not being something it never was meant to be.
Yeah. But I also think Legon has a point in that regard. Blair Witch could end up in the same position if the only thing you're finding is a generic monster that doesn't matter.
Always the victim, always the burden, an anchor dragging me down.
Parallels. Symbolism.
Symbolic. Sorry. Another stolen joke. Oops.
Yeah, I think I fucked up.
Oh no. We died.
Again. Immersion ruined, Yule. You're the worst.
See, kind of things like this, like is this really what you think is scary? Like,
It's
yes.
repetitive and scary can be good, but it's like when it has that repetitive feel like this game does.
Yeah. But I mean, it just tells you, hey, you died to this. Time for trial and error your fucking way through.
Poor little Jimmy. Poor, pathetic
Oh.
little Jimmy. Always the victim. Always the burden. An anchor.
Yeah, monsters can't crawl. I forgot about that. Whatever. I mean, if we want to go back to a psychological horror game that worked, PT is a great example. That game, PT, only had one jump scare. One. And
Right.
it still was regarded as one of the best horror games of all time. And it was just a demo.
It got the tone right. The sad thing is, I don't consider it one of the best horror games of all time. I think it was a good, like, it had the right tone, and that's what made it such a tragedy that it got canceled.
Yeah.
At least we got Death Stranding for a Kojima game.
But the sad thing is, like, I don't even think that's a spiritual successor to Death
It
Stranding.
isn't a spiritual
no,
successor,
it's
it's just a Kojima game.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot. You cannot help me. Not anymore.
Hey, buddy, what are you looking at?
This was to be my final work. To reclaim what was lost. To let go of the stolen fire. To reignite the true flame. But now the spark. It is almost gone. It is lost. Hopeless. Just like you.
Yeah, keep telling that to the game. Because it's painfully true.
Well, that's a nice reference.
Ha. Ha ha.
Shut up.
Ha.
Shut up, it was good. Oh fuck. Ah. Oh. Ah, come on! I ran! But I ran! Ah.
Not fast enough, I guess.
Be my final
Something, I don't know.
Oh my god, why did you send me all the way back here?
reclaim what was lost.
And I ran so far. Copyright.
To reignite the true flame.
What the hell?
But now the spark.
I feel like I've heard this like 3 times already.
This is the second time, but...
Hopeless.
With this game, though, it feels like even more.
Ugh.
Alright.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm running. I'm running.
No, just that sound, yeah. But yeah.
Hmm.
I just don't feel suspense out of this. I mean, the only suspense I can kind of feel is like I don't want. It's kind of the worst kind of suspense out of a game like this. Is like it's not actual horror from what's coming after us. It's I don't want to have to go through this section again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an unfortunate downside to a game that's trying to be suspenseful.
And the only other thing that I can get from this is boredom.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, the weird thing is when we were in that white ship going through all that psychological stuff, I was actually getting kind of interested, and now here we are in a setting we've seen 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, dank, dark, decayed, sunken ship.
Oh man, it's not like Devil May Cry didn't put us through a section like this already,
Yeah,
and millions of
which
other
is
games.
way better because it was only 5 minutes.
I mean, just look at the Arkham
Right.
games. Just look at the Arkham games. Like, Arkham Asylum, the best fucking example I can ever think of. Just the way it masterfully does psychological horror. It's just
When Batman
amazing.
Arkham Knight has better horror than an actual horror game, you know something's wrong.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like the stuff they do with Scarecrow alone just gets that really
Is better than this.
patted down. Yeah. It's just the Scarecrow stuff in all three games that are like way more entertaining. So it's like, oh. Or I don't even know if there's the Scarecrow stuff in two, but like even the
In Arkham City, no.
Ra's
There was-
Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al
Yeah.
Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul.
Sorry. Ra's al
The
Ghul,
Lazarus
whatever.
Pits guy.
Yeah, yeah, the guy who throws the people in the pit.
Who isn't Reptile, because that's the wrong series.
Who's played by Liam
Even though they
Neeson
had a
in the movie.
crossover.